Good afternoon. It is Friday, the 14th of January. My name is John Green with Association Member Benefits Advisors. We want to welcome you today to our TPEA sponsored Lunch and Learn. We're going to be talking about health and financial wellness in the new year. We have a special guest that is joining us today, and we've got a lot of things we're going to cover. So I encourage you to grab a pen and a piece of paper because we're going to send you some websites. We're going to send you some different places, things like that, things you want to write down, but just do a little housekeeping while we've got folks that are logging in right now. We have a pretty good group that will be joining us today. I know it is a 3-day weekend for many state employees, so we appreciate you joining us before you head out for hopefully will be a good time. I think the cold weather is going to roll in tomorrow or so, but all participants today on today's call are in a listen-only mode. And what that means is if you have a question or you want to chat, feel free to drop it in that chat or the Q&A feature. And our special guest or myself will monitor that, and we'll stop periodically if we need to answer a question or bring it up that way. If not, it may be something that is specific to you. We can follow up after the webinar or answer your question specifically in the Q&A feature. We do record all of these webinars and put them out on the TPEA website. That way you can follow up and watch those in the future if you want to. Share them with your friends. It's a good way to introduce TPEA to members in your office as well as fellow retirees as well. You'll also notice in the bottom right-hand corner down there a little QR code. You're going to see that at the end of the conversation today. If there is something specific that you want to ask about in regards to some of the issues or topics we've talked about today, you can simply hover over that QR code with your smartphone. You open up your camera feature, kind of like we do with restaurant menus sometimes now, and it'll take you to a form. You can ask those questions. We'll get back to you as quickly as possible. But we'll go ahead and get rolling here. Looks like Ray has joined us. We'll jump right in, and I want to have Ray talk a little bit about it in a moment. But before we do that, I want to share with you a little bit about what TPEA does. We may have some folks that are on this call for the first time. I noticed some names that have been with us before in the past, and we thank you for joining us again. But TPEA has been around for 75 plus years now. We're going into the plus part of that time of TPEA. They're longer around than ERS has been around, and they've been really designed to help state employees and retirees protect their pension, protect their pay increases, protect their benefits, and then provide them with a way to connect. We work in so many different departments all across the state. We've got several retirees that are out of state, but how to stay connected in a group of people that you work with or used to work with is one of the main reasons that TPEA exists as well. And then to bring you education just like this so that you can remain informed on not only your benefits, but what's available to you as a TPEA member and ways that you can possibly help your family out as well. So Ray, good afternoon. Welcome, and kind of tell us a little bit about what's hot spot with the association right now, and we'll talk about the goals here in just a moment. So kind of tell us, Ray, what's going on. I'll get you to unmute your phone there.
I'm sorry.
There you go.
Hi, everybody. As always, thank you for all your service to the state. We've had some challenging times these last 2 years, and those of you that have been trying to make it through and carrying out the state's missions need to get extra applause. Thank you very much. I want to emphasize to you that you have an opportunity this year as the election year for the legislature, and you have an opportunity to vote for your bosses. These are the folks that set the budgets for your agencies, that set the pay raises, that basically are, they're the folks that are the ones that assign you the missions you have to carry out. And they are also the ones that have funded the retirement fund and are bringing it back into good shape. But we have the election. The first election is the primaries. That's March 1st. But you need to be registered to vote. You need to make sure that you've been registered to vote. And in that case, you have February 14th is the beginning of early voting, but the deadline to register to vote is January 31st. So again, the deadline to register to vote, January 31st, February 14th is the beginning of early voting, and the end of early voting is the 25th of February. The primary is March 1st. I also want to give a shout out to all those candidates that showed up at a TPEA sponsored event where we were able to hear from the candidates about their interests in and their ideas about helping out state employees and retirees. So that was yesterday, and we had a very good attendance, and we really appreciate all the legislators that showed up for that. So again, thank you very much. And John, I'll turn it back over to you.
I appreciate that, Ray. Thank you very much. Again, now's the time to register. If you're not registered to vote, get to know what's out there. Be on the lookout, especially follow the social media accounts of TPEA. Hannah puts out some great information of where the next events are, these coffee with candidates, these meet and greets opportunities, things like that. Again, is an excellent time. And when you think about it, the way that Ray shared is that this is a chance for you to vote for your bosses. And I encourage you to highly get involved as well as that way. Our goals today, we're going to do a couple of things a little bit different than we've done in the past. We've got a special guest with us today who's going to talk about some New Year nutrition tips and resources that you have available to you as well. Then we're going to jump into some major law changes that could impact you. We're going to find out a little bit about some Social Security and Medicare changes that took place as well. And then we're going to walk through some financial tips that whether you're retired or not retired, whether you are the eldest one in your family or whether you're right sandwiched in the middle, where you've got kids as well as parents that are still alive, that you can act upon immediately. Before we do that, though, I do want to kind of get a feel for who is on our call today. So I'm going to launch a poll here real quickly. And if you'll just tell us a little bit about you, and we'll give about 15, 20 seconds there and let us know if we've got active employees or retired employees on here, because I know we have a mix. And so this will kind of help me understand who our audience is and direct our conversations that way appropriately. We'll keep it open for about 10 more seconds. And looks like we've got a pretty good retiree group that's joined us today, which is excellent, which I love that. And appreciate the fact that you've joined us in your time off. So thank you very much for that. All right. Looks like we are about 70-30 retirees to active state employees. So that will kind of help us tailor our conversations a little bit today and what we talk about. So as we said, we're going to jump through here, but I want to introduce our special guest today. I'm really excited about this, and I appreciate Ray finding Tracy for us. Tracy DeLeon is a registered dietitian. And she is from San Antonio, works at UT Health Services in San Antonio and the MD Anderson Cancer Center. And today, Tracy is going to share with us some information on nutrition and how to get started off on the right foot in 2022. So welcome, Tracy, and tell us a little bit about how we can improve our start to this year.
Hi, thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited to talk a little bit about this, share some information, and just provide some resources so that we can get started and you guys can get connected to the right people. And so whenever I start a conversation about nutrition, I really like to just give a little bit of background on some of the underlying concepts of nutrition, so that these are a lot of words that are floating around nowadays. We hear a lot of these common words. So I like to start off with just what is nutrition? What are we even talking about when we talk about nutrition? So basically it is having to do with how food affects the body. So it all has to do with nutrition is what are you consuming and what is that doing to your body and what's going on. Basically, food is necessary, right? It is necessary for us to function, to survive, to move, to do what we're doing in the morning, throughout the day, get to work, whatever our activities look like. So it's broken down into a couple of different categories. And some of these, this is where I was getting into in terms of, these are the words that we kind of hear floating around: the carbs, the fat, the protein, but what does it all really mean? It's all necessary for us to survive. It all works together in our body for it to function at its best, or try to function at its best, right? And it's broken up into these two categories, what we call macronutrients and micronutrients. So if we go into a little bit on each of these sections, when we talk about macronutrients, it's broken down into the carbohydrates, the fats, and the protein. And I like to say these are kind of our umbrella nutrients because there are bigger categories. And then within that falls all our micronutrients, all our vitamins and minerals. So talking a little bit about macronutrients and the carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. Get into that. So carbohydrates sometimes sounds like a scary word, but they're one of my favorites because they're what gives us energy. Our body needs that. That's what fuels us. It comes from a variety of different foods, from breads, from fruits, even dairy products have carbohydrates. But basically what that means is that's where our body is getting energy from. So it needs it. Fats is another one that's important for absorbing certain nutrients. So it helps to process some of those other nutrients, protects our cells. So another very necessary nutrient. Then we get into protein. Protein helps to support our immune system. It helps to heal our tissues if they're damaged, like if we have a wound, protein will help to heal that. It also helps to support our muscles and our bones. So a combination of all of these in the right balance will really help our body function at its best. If you're trying to make some steps in the right direction, an elimination of one of these categories might not be the best option. We're probably aiming for a balance of everything, because within that comes our micronutrients, our vitamins and our minerals. And so a lot of these will be kind of like our vitamin A, vitamin D, iron, just to list a few, because there's a nice long list of different vitamins and minerals that we can also get from a variety of foods. And basically what they do, they can also help to provide us energy. They can also help to support that wound healing if we have some wounds, help support our strength, our immune system, our eyes and our skin. It helps to support our heart. So again, a variety of those foods will really help to provide a lot of those vitamins and minerals to help, again, come together and help our body function at its best. So ultimately, we talk about vitamins and minerals, carbs, protein, but what does this all mean in terms of what we're eating? Where do we even get this from? We really get it from a variety of foods. Sometimes what I get different questions are maybe what is our magic food, or what is the best food that I should be eating? But really, my answer to that is going to be, it should be a variety. It should come from our dairy products, our fruits, our vegetables, our proteins, our grains. And so within that, consuming a variety, and as you can see some from these pictures, that's coming from a variety of color too. So sometimes that's one of the little tips that I give people: look for color in your food, because then you know that you're getting probably a bigger variety of those vitamins and minerals. If it's looking a little too white or even a little too much of one color, try to mix things up again a little bit. And that's how maybe we can make one of those first steps in trying to add a variety. There's not one magic food that I would say is the best. It is because of the variety of the fruits, the vegetables, the proteins, the balance of everything, where we can really get a variety of those nutrients that we're needing and that we're looking for. So in terms of kind of how this might look on your plate, one of the good resources that I like to give to people is myplate.gov, because first of all, that website is nice and extensive for some resources just to read up a little bit on nutrition and a combination of the dietary guidelines that they put out to help us make these recommendations for nutrition, as well as my Academy for Nutrition and Dietetics. So it's all a combination of these really great, credible resources. There's a lot of information out there on the internet and just all over. So what I really like to make sure to give people are resources so that they can either go back and say, hey, you know, I remember seeing this, Myplate, this is probably a credible resource. Let me look into it a little bit more. Maybe look on their website, and you know, you're getting hopefully the most updated information and the most reliable information. But looping back around to the different foods, I mean, if you take a look at their sample plate, this used to be a pyramid. So now it's this plate to give it a little bit better of a visual in terms of what is it looking like on our table. Because what I like to make sure is that people connect. So we want to connect What are we talking about in terms of these different foods? And what does that actually mean in our home, in our lifestyle, on our plates, in our meals? And it can look different from person to person. Not one plate might look the same, but what this is showing is that you get a variety. So you get a variety of those fruits, those vegetables, the grains, the protein, the dairy that I was mentioning earlier. So it kind of helps to visualize a little bit. Look, half of your plate is fruits and vegetables. That's where a lot of that color is going to come in from, right? So it can be salads. It can just be your favorite vegetable. It could be carrots, broccoli. Sometimes making those first steps is just choosing one fruit or vegetable to toss in there. Pick your favorite one. There's no need to eat something that you don't like. Pick your favorite one and start adding that in. And that can be your first step forward. Then you have a portion of your grains, which we want them to be whole grains. So it can be like brown rice or whole grain breads or whole grain flours. So it's okay to have these foods. It's okay to have bread, pasta, oatmeal. They provide other great nutrients as well. They are considered carbohydrates, but they can provide us with fiber, which also helps with gut health. So a lot of great things. Then you've got a portion on your plate that looks like protein. So that could be beans, peas, lentils. Those are considered plant-based proteins, if anybody's heard that term before, but it can also be a portion of meat or chicken or fish, eggs. So lots of great protein sources that we can toss in there. And then kind of looking into the details of, it's coming up with a smaller portion of your plate, but still there because it's very necessary. And we have a variety of those as well. And then we want to make sure we include our dairy product as well, because that can provide calcium. And so it can also be a source of protein. So again, just to give you a visual that ultimately what we're looking for is, again, that variety of foods on our plate. So I mentioned a couple of things. I tossed some suggestions in there while we were talking on the previous slides. Basically, small steps can lead to big changes. I think that's the most important thing that I like to tell people. There is no need to drastically cut something out from your diet. There's no need to make a change from today to tomorrow, because as a dietitian, I want to make sure that people make changes that develop into habits to make them more long-term. So then they last longer. If we kind of jump onto a diet, we have a bigger potential to, well, yes, lose weight or make those changes for a few days or a month, but is that long-term for you? Is that realistic? I want you to be able to enjoy your food, enjoy your meals, such a huge part of our culture, our life. So yes, I love to enjoy my food, and those are my goals for other people as well. So I kind of bringing them back in, a couple of things that I may have mentioned, choose your favorite vegetable and toss that in for the week, or take a look at your plate and say, hey, you know what? I didn't have a ton of color. I wonder if next time I make this dish, I can add this, right? And so then you start kind of thinking and those come in. Maybe you're the type of person to plan a little bit more. So the next time you go to the grocery store, make your list and start taking a look and saying, hey, you know what? I don't have any fruits on here. Let me pick what's in season. There's no need to buy the most expensive foods. There's no need to go fresh all the way. You can do fresh, canned, frozen. And, some of the recommendations might be, yes, you want to look out for certain things, maybe when you're buying canned or frozen, but ultimately that's okay, right? You don't have to buy fresh, especially if you're the type of person for that to kind of sit in the fridge and you want it to last longer. It needs to be frozen. We want it to fit to your budget. Maybe it's about portion sizes. You want to shop what's in season. So all of those things really matter, and so that they can fit in your life, because not one change and not one lifestyle is going to be the same to the next. So we want to make sure that it fits to you. So those are some things that you can even get started with today or tomorrow. If you think that you're missing a couple of those things and there are some thoughts triggering already. So that's just a good idea to kind of put your foot forward and making those changes. So a couple of resources for you to start so that you can look into this a little bit. I think these are two really great starting points. One we already talked about. The other one is called Eat Right. And Eat Right is actually the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. So my academy as a registered dietitian, so very credible. A bunch of articles that can highlight eating right on a budget, or maybe you're looking to increase more fiber, or maybe you're looking for some slow cooker recipes. So that's a great website to head to so that you can make sure you're getting the right information. And it can range from person to person, so depending on different stages of life, different conditions, different medical conditions. So a great place to start. The other website we did talk about more is myplate.gov. And to talk a little bit more about it, yes, it does highlight the MyPlate, but what I also like is they have these lists of the different food groups, but also foods within the food group. So we talked about a few of them, but if you just need some ideas and you're just forgetting, what different fruits or vegetables or grains are out there, I think that's a helpful resource to kind of highlight some of the foods within the food group. So if you're going to start somewhere, I would say at least start here to kind of look a little bit more into detail on these two websites. But another great resource are registered dietitians. So that's going to be somebody like me. And what we're going to do when you meet with a registered dietitian is they're going to ask some questions about your lifestyle. They're going to take a look at your medical history. So that way they can provide you with the most individualized recommendations that fit best for you, for your family, for your home, for your lifestyle, whatever is going on. And I think that is so key, because sometimes we take a look at some of the things that are out there and it's a little bit standardized. And so when a registered dietitian takes a look at what you need, they can help develop goals, they can strategize with you, and so that they can sit down and really take the time to develop that relationship with you and move forward in making whatever changes you want to make, whatever you feel like you want to move forward with. And so we are licensed professionals. We have to take an exam, we have to schooling, take an internship. So we have a good variety of knowledge to be able to sit down and provide you with the most credible and up-to-date information when it comes to nutrition. So if that's the route that you want to take, which I think would be fantastic, there are a couple places that you can find a registered dietitian wherever you're at. One can be through your insurance plan, and so they can tell you what kind of benefits that you have in terms of connecting with a registered dietitian, what was covered within your plan. And so that's a really great place to start to get you connected, and they may be able to even provide you with a list of some of those dietitians wherever you're located at that would accept your insurance. But another place that I think is really helpful, so you don't have to Google registered dietitians wherever you're at, is that same website for our academy, Eat Right. So at eatright.org, you can search for a registered dietitian. Then you can even filter it for different categories, like in person, if you're more comfortable with telehealth video visits nowadays. So it'll filter out what you're needing. And I kind of mentioned it earlier, but you can even filter it by medical condition. So if you're looking to specifically, tailor it to a certain condition that you might have where you're needing some nutritional guidance, you can even specify that. And so it'll help filter some of those dietitians that are specializing in some of those areas. And of course, by insurance, by payment, by language. So it's a really great place to start. In addition to this, there may be some local events where registered dietitians are at, but ultimately what you want to look for is that they are a registered dietitian, because that means that they have been through the schooling, they have passed their exam, and they are up to date with all of that credible information to be able to help you individualize what you need to work on or what you want to work on.
Great, Tracy. Thank you very much. Tracy's going to hang around. If you want to put questions in the chat feature, she can kind of monitor that if there's something specific. One question that I have, Tracy, we're now going on 2 years of this COVID. And, we read a lot, we find on the internet, or there's talk, at work, that kind of stuff like that, of how your diet or nutrients or certain vitamins and minerals can be impacted for and against COVID. What are anything that you and your colleagues are finding that the diet has impact on COVID?
Yeah, and so that's some up and coming research, I think, and so there's going to be a lot coming out. But specifically, when I talk to people when it comes to keeping healthy and just making sure that you have an overall healthy diet, that's one factor, right? So that's one factor in contribution to maybe a bigger picture when it comes to COVID. But what I like to tell people is, when we work towards an overall healthy diet, the fruits and vegetables and grains and all these vitamins and minerals and nutrients that we were talking about really help work together to help our body function at its best, or try to function at its best, right? So if we help support it in that sense, then it's got what it needs to continue, although that's one factor. So there's a lot that comes into the virus. And so, speaking to your medical provider and your doctor, making sure that you're taking the right steps, I think is probably the most appropriate route to take. Because when it comes to nutrition, we're always going to, despite, what might be going on, we always want to encourage an overall healthy diet with a variety of foods. And so if you're missing out on something in particular, your medical provider can help run some labs or kind of do what they need to do to determine if there's something else that you might need, or, what the research is coming out on in terms of that.
Great. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Again, if you'll stay on and monitor the chat a little bit, if there's some questions that you have for her, feel free to drop those in there and she can respond directly back to you as well. So again, thank you, Tracy, for joining us today. As we transition, I want to talk about some law changes that took place. I want to talk a little bit about a new law that went into effect in January 1st, that came out of the 2020 COVID bill, which there was a ton of stuff crammed in there, but it's related to balance billing or surprise billing. And those of you, depending upon what health plan you have with the state, retiree, or even with Medicare, you know that sometimes there are networks and out-of-network providers that work hand in glove. You may receive a procedure and you think that it's all through your network doctor, but there's maybe a radiologist or some other type of provider that does something that's not in the network, and you get a surprise bill that you weren't expecting. This new bill tries to address this. This new law tries to address this and requires that anybody who is out of network, once your doctor files a procedure plan, a plan of care, they have to give you a 72-hour notice that they are out of network. So it allows you to possibly change who that radiologist that reads your stuff, or try to find somebody in network, but that that there could be another bill coming. It doesn't change anything in regards to deductibles, co-pays, co-insurance clauses, but it really sets up a third-party resolution for the insurance company, provider, and the healthcare provider to resolve any disputes. So it really helps prevent you from getting those surprise bills that you weren't expecting. It doesn't mean that there's still not going to be bills outside of, but you would know about them beforehand. This has an impact on air ambulance providers. And we know in Texas, we've got a lot of land out there. So there's a lot of air ambulances that are out there, Life Flight. We're not quite sure how that impacts them yet, but we do know that this this law has zero to do with ground ambulance providers. So you can still get hit with a pretty sizable bill after the fact once you're transferred in the event of an emergency somewhere. And what we found is about 75%, closer to 80%, about 78% of all ambulance providers in the state of Texas do not participate in any network. It doesn't matter, Medicare, Health Select, Health Choice, high deductible, doesn't matter. They just don't participate. So they may get reimbursed from the insurance provider at their rate, but then bill you for additional amount over that. So we'll continue to watch out for that. We'll have a couple of webinars in the future once we get a little bit more clarity about that. But just know that that's a new law that's out there that could help avoid some of those surprise medical bills that you get there. All right, we had a pretty overwhelming number of people on our call that are impacted. They're retired, whether they were already on Medicare, Social Security, maybe or maybe not. But Social Security took their largest increase in a long, long time, their cost of living increase, about 6%. It's about $92 a month on average, max of $197 a month. But trailing right along behind that, Medicare payments just went up as well, a little over $21. So you can see that even though there's an increase in cost of living and Social Security, Medicare is following up right behind that. I did a little bit of research out there, and in the past 10 years, Social Security cost of living increases have gone up about 19%. Medicare Part B premiums have gone up close to 58%. So you know that there's some changes out there. We see it out there. Inflation is impacting everyone, and this is kind of a look at what that looks like for you as well. There are some changes also this year in the Part D prescription drug plans. We'll have a webinar in more in depth about Medicare sometime very soon. The deductible went up a little bit, and the gap widened in the donut hole by about $300. So it's important to understand what your Medicare options are, how Medicare works, even if you are on a state plan as well, and Medicare is your primary and as well. So just to understand what those are for you out there. And then we're starting to see the apex of the cuts to Medicare. These were put into place many administrations ago. So it's not any particular administration, the past, this one or the past one. These were on top of planned increases and deductibles, co-insurance clauses, and things like that. They started shaving off reimbursement rates to providers. And that's really come to a head this year. And I'll show you here in a moment how that it's impacted. Also, they can reclassify certain procedures that were usually inpatient procedures, and you got on top of that some type of aftercare recovery care services. They've reclassified those as outpatient procedures or observation status, and therefore you don't get any type of rehabilitation services. So it's really some cuts that they've done in Medicare can really impact you, even though it doesn't look like it's big on the surface. So let me show you how this works in that situation. Let's take, for instance, a typical retiree. Her name is Grace. About 8 years ago, she had cancer. And so she's been going to her physician's clinic for immune therapy IVs that keep her immune system up so she doesn't get this cancer back. She receives that at a physician's clinic. It's usually all been covered by Medicare. It's all good to go, or her health plan is great. Medicare has reduced that reimbursement for a particular medication by 2%. And that causes that physician to decide, I'm no longer taking Medicare. And so when that happens is Grace has two choices. She can say, all right, I'm going to have to go find somewhere that may not be as close to me, somebody I'm not as comfortable with, but takes Medicare and get that covered there. Or she has to decide, I'm going to stay with my physician that I've been taking this services for the past 8 years, but I now have to pay a little bit more. So again, there are some changes, and this is how those Medicare cuts take place out there. And it really can put you at a little bit of a lurch because it changes January 1st, and you may have to make changes as well. So that's some of the things that are going on out there, the way that Medicare is trying to shave billions off the cost as we age, and just know that that's out there. Many of you know too that your Medicare premiums are indexed based on your income, your household income, and that determines how much you pay for Medicare. If you had a life-changing event in 2021, a marriage or a divorce, a spouse pass away, if you're retired and you had a second career, but now you stopped working, so that income is gone. Or say you had a house that you rented out and derived rental income property from that, and it got destroyed in a disaster, hurricane, fire, or something like that, tornado, and you no longer have that income, you need to file SSA 44. It's a Medicare form related to a monthly adjusted amount on your income. What that basically says is if you had a life-changing event and now your income is lower, Social Security needs to go back in and readjust your Medicare payments. So please, 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 if something like this happened to you, make sure you file that now. That way you don't have to pay all year waiting for your income to be reassessed. You can do it right away. So that's just a little tip for you there as well. All right. Tracy talked about some of the ways that you can be a good healthcare consumer. One of the things that I want you to do, and TPEA wants you to do, is look at your plan. Understand whether you're on Healthcare Select, the high deductible plans, whatever you're on, whatever those type of plans that you're on, Medicare, you're on a spouse's plan, whatever it is, understand how the copays your deductibles work, your co-insurance, that's your maximum out of pockets. Those things went up in the last enrollment period. You could be looking at $7,000 out of pocket in co-insurance before the insurance pays 100%. Out-of-pocket limits, things like that are very important. These are ways that insurance providers can make slight changes without having to increase premiums. So understand what those are, because I want to make sure that you're a good healthcare consumer. And there are 5 tips to being a good healthcare consumer. And I'll kind of weave what Tracy talked about in here as well. First and foremost, understand your coverage. As a state employee and a state retiree, a lot of times we think, I have got great coverage because I don't pay a premium for it. The state covers it all, which is great, is a phenomenal benefit. Don't get me wrong, but understanding what that coverage means to you underneath and what it could cost is very important. Understand those perks and incentives. You hear the term silver sneakers, or you may see some things within the policies that will pay you an incentive to get a mammography, an incentive to get a colonoscopy, things like that, or connecting you to those dietitians, case workers, people that will help you get connected to professionals and navigate that process, and it's covered by your insurance provider. That's important to understand what those perks and incentives are out there. And especially don't skip that preventative care, because if we can knock some things out beforehand and take care of that, it may prevent some more challenging health issues in the long run. Price transparency and shopping around for services. Let me stress this very strongly, and I'll tell you in the form of a story. As we all know, when that first cold front comes into Texas, now where you live in Amarillo, it's a real cold front. When you live where I live near Houston, it means it goes from 85 to 75, that first cold front. Well, that always brings in the tree pollen and the sinus infections and all that. November calendar turned, first sinus infection hits my wife. She's a teacher. She can't get to the doctor, so they said, all right, let's set up a teledoc visit. She says, okay, let's do a teledoc visit. All she needs is antibiotics and maybe a steroid shot. Doctor won't see her, COVID, all this kind of stuff. She does a teledoc visit for the doctor to tell her, well, you've got to get a COVID test before I'll see you. And by the time I can see you, well, your sinus infection is probably over with and antibiotics won't do you any good anyway. Okay. So my wife's got to still teach. She can't be out. Well, she gets a bill for $200 for that 15-minute teledoc visit. So next time she's going to ask, what does it cost for a teledoc visit before she schedules that? So shop around, find out what that pricing is. There's a lot of neat services that are out there, but sometimes they may cost you more than you anticipate. Make sure that the doctor that you have is in network, understand what those are. For those of you who are active employees, and depending upon if you're on the high deductible plan or if you're on a different plan, you may have a flexible spending account that you've been contributing to. Don't forget about that. There are some dates that you have to claim for last year's expenses, and those are coming up very quickly that you need to file those forms to get reimbursed for that. Health savings accounts, that money rolls over every year. Flexible spending account, you've got to use it or lose it. Health savings accounts roll over every year. You can save it up for something. And the health savings account is another great way, because you can use your premium or the money that you've put into health savings account, the money the state's contributed, you can purchase long-term care coverage as well. So it's really a neat way to maximize what the state could give you in the health savings account, or what you can put out there, because it's tax-free or pre-tax money out there. So those are some ways that you can do that to take care of your healthcare expenses. Now, our role at AMBA, and this is why we're partnered with TPEA, is to help you understand your coverage, help you understand what's out there for you. So when we look at the plans that the state offers, and then we go back and fine-tooth comb Medicare, what we find every year, and it usually is pretty consistent, whether you're a Medicare eligible or not, is that there are 4 major gaps that your plans don't cover. And these are usually centered around any type of long-term care, home health care, facility-related care. They're related to cancer treatment and recovery after your diagnosis and your initial surgeries. Things related to transportation, comfort items, certain co-pays, things like that that aren't covered that can really drive up the cost there. We've talked about ambulance services before. Medical transportation is usually not covered very well, and there's not any expense that's covered out there for final expenses and things of that nature. So Those are some gaps that we see out there. But I want to talk now and flip the coin. Let's talk. We were talking about healthy issues, and Tracy brought us some great information about diet, talked about some of the changes to your health plans, things of that nature. Let's talk about finances now. I want to talk about 4 key areas. I'm going to show you some things. I'm going to show you some lists and things like that. I'm going to give you an email at the end where we can give you the links to those lists, so don't have to worry about writing all these things down right now. All right, so we've got 4 major areas we want to talk about that you can kind of be financially healthy this year. Areas of spending and insurance, planning and organization, and then how to protect your nest egg. So we're going to jump in and kind of talk about those things right now. There's 3 big budget items. We all know that inflation is going up, up, up. We just got the latest numbers, and December was even bigger than the November and October. But really, there's a lot of things we can do on a small scale, but they don't add up to these big budget items. And I'm not advocating some of these things. I'm just saying these are some of the trends that we're seeing out there right now that you can use to affect the 3 big budget items of housing, transportation, and food in your budget as well. You're going to see a lot of people talking about downsizing. And if you're like my wife, we've got the DIY or the Magnolia Network on all the time now, tiny home living, those type of things. House prices, and especially for those of you in Austin, house prices are at their astronomical high right now. If you don't need the house that you're in right now in terms of size, now is a good time to maximize your value of your house. You're going to also hear this term house hacking. And this is a new term. Younger generation uses it quite a bit. It's ways to utilize your house to generate revenue. And it could be taking on roommates. It could be putting in an Airbnb pool for a couple of weeks when you're out on vacation, things like that. We've got some members of TPEA that are living in more rural communities, live on a farm. You can put a room at your house up on Airbnb. I'm seeing $500 a night to come get a farm experience in Caldwell, Texas. It blows me away what people will come to do to get an experience on the farm. But those are ways that you can house hack to get more money for your home. If you have an unused vehicle or a vehicle that you're using or don't use at all, a way that you can use right now, used car prices are astronomically high. You can probably get a pretty good price for that. And then food is the other major budget item. You've gone to the grocery store and you've seen the prices go up. Take advantage of the Passport program that TPEA offers to all their members. It's free, but it gives you, from a perspective of what Tracy talked about, these meal prep programs can really put together a really healthy plate for you, eliminate waste, provide you ready prepared meals at greatly reduced prices. You can take advantage of those discounts. And then there are tons of restaurants that are involved now in the Passport program, especially for the bulk of you on the call that are from Austin. New restaurants are added every week, and you can go eat out and save 60% or more on your meals. It's a great way to save money on eating out as well. So that's some ways from a budget standpoint that maybe you can help save a little bit of money and be more financially fit. From an insurance perspective, and I highly encourage this, to do a check every year. I'm in the process of doing my check right now. Look at your auto insurance, check your deductibles, see what you have out there. You may be able to go from a $250 to a $500 deductible or $1,000, save some money on that. Look at your mileage usage. If you're working from home now, or you're not driving as much, you're not going into work because of COVID, call your insurance agent and tell them, I'm driving my vehicle less. They may have your vehicle work rated and not pleasure rated because you're not traveling to work now. That can make a difference in how much you use your vehicle on your insurance rates. Look for affinity discounts. And when I say affinity discounts, because you're a member of TPEA, you can go out and look. I think Liberty Mutual offers discounts for state employees and retired employees. You could be a member of certain clubs, things like that, alumni groups. Look for affinity discounts that can save you a little bit off of your auto insurance. And look at specialty coverage. This is why I always recommend that you shop around, that you have a review from your insurance agent, because specialty coverage, such as pet insurance on your auto insurance policy, or maybe towing insurance, if you have a AAA membership and you also have towing on your car, you may have duplicate coverage and you can drop that. Your pet may no longer be with us, And so you don't need pet coverage anymore. Things like that, a way that you can get some of these specialty coverages that may just be $5, $10, $20 here or there. It all adds up after a while. Now, in terms of home prices and home insurance, as I mentioned, home prices are going up, up, and up. What usually happens is your insurance rate on your home is based on your replacement cost of your home, not the price that you can sell it for, and not the tax value on the tax rolls. It's based on what it would cost to tear down your home and replace it should there be a major disaster. I encourage you to check that value, because every year some companies put an automatic increase on it, and it just keeps going up, and it may not cost as much to replace it as what they've got it insured for. I encourage you to check that. Again, look at your deductibles. We're such a huge state. I live close to the coast. Oftentimes you'll have deductibles that are not only for fire, but you'll have a separate wind and hail deductible, and then a separate tropical cyclone or a named storm deductible on top of that. Be sure to check those out, because you could be looking at a $5,000, $7,000, $10,000 hit that you're responsible for before the insurance company pays. So check your deductibles, because that can be a hit when you least expect it that way. If you've done any major renovations, put a new roof on, whether it's because of a hailstorm or just because you needed a new roof, call your agent and tell them. There's significant discounts for that out there. New electrical, plumbing, AC units, things like that as well. And don't be afraid to shop around and look to bundle, because there are sizable discounts. Companies are so hungry for new customers. Oftentimes they will offer a big discount to you to come to them from another company. And so take a look at those out there as well. Also, double check your life insurance. We're going to talk about that just in a minute. Just make sure that you still need it. Check what you have through the state. Check if you've got term versus permanent. If you've got a term insurance policy, it could be coming near the end of its term, and it's going to renew at a much higher rate. So double check that type of thing as well. Some of the new policies have nursing home riders out there. Look at your options on that, because I'm a strong believer in life insurance, but make sure you've got the right insurance and what you want to do with that as well. Okay. That's some insurance things I want you to check out there as well. I want to spend the rest of our time really talking about planning and making the most of planning, because you never know whether you're a retiree and you're the oldest ones in your family, or you have parents that are still living as well. Having an in case of death folder or in case of disaster folder is so important. We have one, like I said, we live near the coast. We can pull it whenever it's time to evacuate and take our documents and go that way. I have challenged myself to get with my mother this year, and we're going to build her iCod folder. So I'm going to walk you through some of these steps of things to put in your iCod folder, and make sure that you're aware of it. Start to plan now. I will send you links afterwards if you want to that have the checklist built in them as well. So when you're looking at your iCod folder, to make sure that you get your financial house in order, start with your life events, your birth certificates, your marriage certificates, any divorce decrees, things like that. Then jump over and look at your life insurance and your retirement documents. And I want to spend a little bit of time here for two reasons. Please, 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 if you're an active employee, check your beneficiaries through ERS. If you're a retiree, check your beneficiaries on any policies that you have, as well as your pension. There have been too many times, and I know Ray's seen this when he's worked at ERS as well, that I have delivered life insurance checks to an ex-spouse because the husband or wife never changed the beneficiary to their new spouse. That causes a lot of friction and a lot of fun. I've also delivered checks to 2 of 3 children because they didn't add that third child onto the beneficiary form. Please, please, please check your beneficiaries. Put your life insurance policies in here, any of your pension documents in there, any annuity paperwork, and especially for those of you who are active employees or even retirees, put in there what you have elected for your pension, meaning that if your pension is going to continue to go to your beneficiaries at 100%, or if it's going to drop down to 50%, or if your beneficiaries get nothing from your pension. Put all of that in there so that they understand what's coming and what can be expected out there. Okay. Also, from a banking perspective, because we're using so much online banking these days, make sure to put your password, your login information, along with your bank account information, your credit cards, things like that. And if you've got safety deposit boxes, please put what the keys are to, where you can find them and all that. My father-in-law, his dad passed away about 5 years ago and left him just with an envelope with about 10 keys in it. He spent months going to banks all through South Houston just to try to find what was in those boxes, if the boxes even fit, the keys, that kind of stuff. So make sure you do that. Make sure you take care of those things in your iCod folder as well. All right. Going through here, the other things I want you to put in there, documents related to assets, your mortgage, your property deeds, things like that, cemetery deeds. One thing that I just read recently is that more and more people are electing not to be buried. They're electing to go the cremation route. Well, some of you may have purchased, or your parents may have purchased cemetery plots. That used to be something that was very popular, but they no longer want to be buried. There are brokers out there who will buy and sell your cemetery plots. It could be a way to get those taken care of now and not at a later time out there as well. Anything timeshares, IRAs, all 401ks, anything that's an asset that you have, at least put a list in there where you can find those documents. The same thing for your liabilities out there, all the mortgage details, any reverse mortgages, any loans, things like that. And then you just want to kind of put a list of your monthly expenses. And these are things that if somebody needed to, A, have them turned off once you pass away, or if you become incapacitated, where do I need to look to make sure, or my son or daughter can take care of these things for me out there, including subscriptions, memberships, things of that nature. And then wrapping up your iCod folder, with everybody being on social media, make sure you include your passwords, your email passwords, Netflix accounts and numbers, all that kind of stuff, things that can be cut off, computer passwords so that we can, as kids, can access it, things of that nature. Then put your contact details in there. Doctors, representatives, lawyers, ministers, financial advisors, whatever it is, put all those people down there so that when it's time to make those calls, your kids, you can do it for your parents, whatever it is, they know where to call. And then put your essential documents like your wills, your medical power of attorneys, things like that. And then what I'm going to be doing with my mom is going over, what does she want her final wishes to be? She purchased some plots up near Wichita Falls, where our family's from. We live 400 miles away from there. Does she want to go back there? Does she want to be buried closer here? Things like that. Just get those final wishes. It'll be a good exercise to build your iCod folder. And again, if you want a copy of what these the link to these checklists, I'll send that to you. I'll show you how to do that as we go forward as well. And the reason I have this conversation, and I'm challenging you as well, this is a picture of two of the most important three females in my life, my daughter and my mother. My wife, of course, is number one, but my mother turns 81 in May. If you've joined us on these calls before, you know that my father was in a nursing home in Austin and Marble Falls for the last 2 years of his life, passed away back in October of 2020. But I noticed this year that mom at Christmas was a little bit slower, a little bit more confused, repeated herself, things like that more often as well. And so I'm going to take the time to ask her more questions to put these things in order. And these are some questions that experts tell us that we need to ask. Again, where are these documents? I want to make sure that we put these in order. Can I meet your advisors, your doctors, your accountant, your insurance people, that kind of stuff like that? Where's the pharmacy that you have your medications filled at? And then I'm going to have that tough conversation, because my father was 2 years in a nursing home, had great care with my mom. How do you want to be cared for? If you can no longer bathe yourself, dress yourself, wipe your backside, all those uncomfortable conversations, we need to have that now before my brother and I, my wife and my sister-in-law have to deal with that. You know, does she want to stay in her house, move closer to the family, move in with me or my brother, that kind of thing, or retirement community? What does she want to do? And then what are her final wishes, things like that. So again, I encourage you to ask these questions. Share these questions with your kids if you're the eldest in the family now. Make sure these things are done. It'll save a whole lot of heartache and a whole lot of headache if you don't have to do it during the grieving process as well. This is a phenomenal tool that I found to help start that conversation. And again, I'll send you the link out. It's from AARP. University of Minnesota, kind of set this financial roadmap down of all the steps that you need to do for your household or for your parents' household, where you can just say, these are my assets. Here's how I want to transfer that conversation, almost like a medical power of attorney. It's almost a financial power of attorney that says, here's how I want my finances to be handled when I can no longer do that. And it's ways to start that conversation beforehand. Really great tools, really impressed with this. And I'll send you the link. It's got, you can fill it out online. You can print it off and handwrite it as well. Really a neat tool that's out there. And finally, to wrap us up, just make sure that you understand what your top threats are to your nest egg. We've talked about this a little bit in the past. Taking care of elderly parents can be really a threat to your nest egg. And I'm not talking about your pension. I'm talking about your Texas Saver account, 401ks, IRAs, things like that, that you're saving up for your own retirement. Death of a spouse without life insurance is a big hit as well. Those boomerang kids that come back and maybe bring your grandkids with them, a medical crisis, or overexposure to the stock market as we get older. That can be a challenge as well. And I really want to hit on that one, because when you think about it, those of you who can remember this, back in 2008, 2009, that was really the last time that we had a significant long-term duration drop in the stock market. And if you're retiring and you're retiring in that year, could you afford to have a 50% hit in your nest egg as you were retiring? Do you have enough time to make it back up? You know, and then I'm not a stock market prognosticator by any stretch of the imagination. If I was, you wouldn't see me. I would send Ray a postcard from my Caribbean island. You know, I would invite him down to hang out on the boat with me, Ray. And, you know, so, but we have bear markets. We have times when the stock market drops over 30% and stays that way for a long period of time. It's been a long time since that's happened. We're now going on 14 plus years since that's happened. And making sure that you don't have an overexposure to the stock market is one of those pitfalls out there to protect your nest egg. And you can say, well, I'm just going to throw it over into my CD or to a money market account or in the savings account. You can't make any money there these days. Inflation eats that up faster than any bank is paying for that. So we're stuck in a situation. What do we do? There is an option that's out there. It's endorsed by the TPEA. It's an endorsed wealth management solution that allows you to participate in the upside of the market with no downside risk. You never lose money in it. The thing I like about it, and the reason I have it for part of my nest egg, is it has those long-term care benefits in there that are built in, that if I don't feel like, well, if I don't have to spend money on long-term care, but I still want to have it just in case, this allows me to have the best of both worlds in that. So that's an opportunity out there for you as well, because we've got to prepare for a lot more years of living. That no matter what takes place, inflation is going to be with us, whether it's high or low. Those crises and medical come, things like that. But studies show that once we reach age 65, chances of living to 90 are even more greatly enhanced. So we've got a long way to prepare. TPEA, AMBA want to make sure that you're there and help you understand how you can prepare for that. I do want to remind you, we talked about healthy living. Tracy talked about all the cool stuff that you can do to change your diet. This is the first of the year. You may want to get out and start working out some more. You may want to get more vitamins, get your financial house in order. There are tons and tons of new discounts on the Passport program that are available to you exclusively as TPA members. Get out there, play on the Passport program, understand that. If you don't have it signed up for that, have it registered. I'll show you how to do that here in just a moment. And those of you who live in Austin, I cannot believe, like I mentioned, the number of new restaurants that are added out there, a number of new things. Because of all these tech companies that are moving to Central Texas, all these discounts are coming with them. And it's really cool to see. Take advantage of this. There's so many savings out there. Stretch your dollar, get in shape, and make this a great year for you as well. So please, please, please tell people about TPEA. Tell them about your coworkers, your fellow retirees. Tell them about these workshops, these webinars, so they can get on, find out about TPEA, help join TPEA, strengthen pensions, benefits, help fight to get to pay increases, things like that. Make sure that you tell them all about this. So, all right, we've got a few more webinars coming up this first quarter. We're going to talk about the dental vision program, probably our most popular benefit out there. Once we move into February, we're going to kind of talk about cancer, heart, and stroke, some healthy tips there. Ray's going to share his testimony on what happened with him as well during the situation he had. Right before spring break happens on the 25th of February, we're going to talk about those ambulance issues like we talked about earlier. We're going to kind of break that law down a little bit, show with you a TPEA endorsed solution for that. And we're going to cover you all the latest travel discounts, theme parks, fun stuff, that as well. We're going to come back in March and talk about the Texas Saver program, bring back our special guest on Texas Saver, help you maximize that. We're going to have you submit questions beforehand and answer all those questions in the webinar. And then we're going to wrap up the first quarter talking more in depth about the 5 or 6 ways that you can protect your nest egg to make sure that you have everything that you want out there as well. So, okay, I'm going to stop recording now and